um, about this, but Ted Turner, a brash, and I'm reading this from AP News, a brash and outspoken television pioneer who raced yachts, owned huge chunks of the American West, and transformed the news business by launching CNN and introducing the 24-hour news cycle, died today at the age of 87. Turner Enterprises confirming that news with several outlets this morning. And here on the program today, we have a man who is a 50-year broadcast news veteran who has worked for CNN for 17 years in different roles. Bob Furnad, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm sorry I've delayed you. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem at all. I just want to ask you, when you heard the news about Mr. Turner, I guess just walk me through, your reaction and how you were feeling in the moment when you heard the news about him passing.
Well, I went right away to Facebook, where I can communicate with former employees of mine, former staff, and join them. I had two different stories to tell them under their normal announcement. It got me thinking about going back to. I started in 1983 when they had already been on the air 3 years, and it was quite an experience. And Ted was quite the risk taker. He was the head of the company, obviously, and the head of the company, often their attitude filters down. You go to a dentist's office and they're grouchy. The dentist's going to be grouchy. They go to a dentist's office and they're friendly. The dentist will be friendly. So Ted was a risk taker, and so were we. We were doing things that hadn't been done.
As a risk taker, there is a generation of folks who don't remember what it was like to live without the 24-hour news cycle. And you served as political director, also president of CNN Headline News. What was that like? Again, that can be scary, but it also can be exciting. What was that like working under Ted Turner during those years?
Well, it was great. I came in as political director, as you said, and so the initial chore for me was to create by CNN, by ABC standards, where I had worked before, a very small staff to cover the campaign. And it was a re-election for I'm having a head block. Anyways, the Republican the incumbent president was a Republican. And there were 7 candidates for the Democratic post, the Democratic candidate. And we obviously couldn't staff each one with a reporter and a camera crew. So the one that was an essential that had to have 24/7 coverage was Jesse Jackson, because he was running for the first time, and he was a target of the Jesse haters. So we had to staff it full time with a camera crew and a reporter and a field producer. None of these people had been covering a campaign before, and they're, the old book, The Boys on the Bus, talking about the media that covered campaigns. Well, this was now the boys and the girls on the bus. The bus had changed, and our reporter was a woman. So the standard procedure when you cover a candidate is you're often on a separate plane, chartered, or in the case of Jesse, because of money, we were on a plane in which he flew also. He flew up front. We had no access to him. And so we were covering Jesse Jackson and turning a story a day that made its way on the air repeatedly on CNN and some on Headline News. And I got a call, and let me lay the groundwork. When you're covering a campaign as a television network, they provide the staff to load the camera equipment onto the plane, which is a charter. They provide two seating when it's 3 and across. In other words, the middle seat is always empty. When you get to the destination, they unload the equipment for you. When you check in a hotel, they deliver the equipment and your luggage to the hotel, et cetera, et cetera. So for that service, they charge the media 101% of first class. Expensive, but worth it. So the staff had been covering for a few days when they called me and they said, look, we've been doing this a few days and all we get are day-old donuts and ice-cold drinks. And I said, well, you're supposed to be getting a hot meal and drinks, et cetera, and you're not. No, we're not. Well, okay, it'll change. This is a young campaign. They've never done this before. Give them a chance. This was quite an experience on CNN standards because we were, in large part, an unknown. And yet I was able to communicate with a staff that was able to cover satisfactorily the candidate. Well, so a few days later, they called I think this time the cameraman called me and said, "Look, we're still getting day-old donuts and ice-cold drinks." And I said, "Well, let me call their comptroller and get this straightened out." So before I called the comptroller, I called a reporter for the Washington Post, who was a media reporter, and during campaigns, much of what he was reporting was media stories. And I told him the story about the airplane, the zoo plane, as we called it, and our inability to get decent meals. And he knew the arrangement was 100% of first class. And so he understood and thanked me, and I said, "All we're getting every day, again, are day-old donuts and ice cold Coke." He said, "Well, thanks for the information." Well, after speaking with him, I called the comptroller for the Jesse Jackson campaign and said, "I just wanted to check on something. Do you know who to send the bills to?" And I filled him in on who to send them to. And I said, "Now, are you charging us 100% above first class?" And he said, "We are." I said, "Well, then I expect first class service. That's hot food and cold drinks." The next day, it was in the Washington Post column, the story that I had given to them. The day after that, we started getting hot meals on the Jackson campaign. So that was CNN's experience as the new guy in the block trying to find a way in.
Oh, man, what a story. Bob Furnad here on the program. Thank you so much for taking time to speak with us. Again, we lost a pioneer here in the broadcast industry, Ted Turner. Thank you for your time.
Okay, I'm sorry I wasn't able to get to you earlier, and you were not able to give me enough time. I've got 4 or 5 other stories, but you move on with your broadcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. We'll get back to you, Bob.
Okay.
All right, let's take a quick break.